Hello everyone and welcome to another wavelength series. My name is Waveney and I am your master leadership mindset coach, and I help you to not just survive in your role, but I help you to thrive and to become an influential leader. Now, are you ready to get on the same wavelength? Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So today I have a treat for you. So yesterday, so today is Tuesday, June 2nd, and yesterday was Monday, June 1st. Now, why is this important? It is important because yesterday I would have celebrated 10 years at my 9 to 5. 10 years at my 9 to 5, and it's a huge accomplishment, right? And when I was preparing for wavelength, I'm like, what do I want to speak about? Because I have a couple methods of choosing the topics and stuff like that. And I also want you to bring you stuff that is relevant. Now, this year I've been speaking a lot about leading under pressure, because your strength as a leader, the metric that you use to measure how effective and impactful you are, should never be when it's quiet, when everything is going well, it's a bed of roses. That's not when you really want to measure how good of a leader you are. That doesn't really give you a barometer on anything. That doesn't really give you a reading on how you're doing. Now, if this is the first time you're hearing this, sorry to disappoint you, but you can't tell how well you're doing because things are going well. So the way you tell your effectiveness, your impact, how well you can lead is really under pressure. And this is something that I've realized. That's when you grow, right? You never grow when things are going well and you're doing the same thing over and over. Usually your growth, and if you look back on your life, usually your growth is happening or has happened during those periods when there is pressure, when there's a change, when there's some sort of upheaval in your life. That is when we are tested. It's like going to the gym. If the weights are easy, you don't gain any muscle, you don't gain any body definition. There's nothing really to prove, nothing really to show for going to the gym. That is why it will, when you go to the gym, you take weights that are not too much but has some sort of resistance to it, so that you can develop that muscle, that you can develop that body definition, so that you could lose that weight. I know I'm saying a mouthful. And so what does this have to do with my 10 year at my 9 to 5? Well, because I'm talking about pressure, at first I thought about sharing with you 10 pieces of advice, but I said no. Let me share with you what I've come to understand when you are a leader, someone in a small community, and what sort of pressure can come about because of that. And so that's what I want to talk to you about. Now, if you're listening to me and you live in a large city and all that, it doesn't mean that these can't apply to you. One moment. It doesn't mean that these tips can't apply to you. But as someone who's living on a 68 square mile island, many of you who are viewing me, you live on the same island, or you may live on a neighboring island, or you may live in a large city but in a small community. Either way, these tips will apply to you. And so I wanted to share my perspective as someone who has been successful in a leadership role, who is in a senior leadership role at my 9 to 5, the types of pressure that one can face when you are in a small community, leading, growing, succeeding, right? And these are some of the things that I've had to really be mindful of and really resisted so that I could grow. And so let's start. And I have four things. So it is, and it's the pressure that you feel when you're in this type of situation. And so number one is the pressure to be liked. The pressure to be liked. And I think that most leaders, like anyone who steps foot into a management, a leadership role, at first you have that pressure to be liked. And if I saw a quote a few years ago and I really loved it, and it said, if you want everyone to like you, then go drive an ice cream cart, right? Because who doesn't like ice cream? Who doesn't like ice cream? And so there's a pressure to be liked, and especially if you are leading in a small community, this is your first manager role, or you're in a senior role like me, there's a pressure to be liked. But what I've come to realize, like over the years, is that if you are hated, or if you are, and I don't even like to use the word hated, if you are disliked, it means that you're doing something right. It probably means that you're doing something right. It probably means that you are not going with the status quo. And I've had to learn that. Many of you know that at my 9 to 5, I'm an HR director, right? And of course, HR could be one of those places where people either love you or hate you. And usually in HR, you have to, have difficult conversations, you have to provide feedback, you have to champion changes that may not always be popular, and you deal and manage with the messy side, let me put it, the messy side of HR, the side of HR that most people would run from. If I had $100 for everybody who has said to me over the course of my career, I wouldn't want your job for anything. But I wouldn't want your job for anything. I would be a billionaire. And so what I've come to realize is that I'm doing something right. The fact that I'm being disliked, it means that I am doing something right. If you are a leader, I've come to recognize that, and it came through trial and error, because when you're in a small community, people say things about you. Sometimes they're hurtful things. People react to you in different ways, especially if it's something that they disagree with. You get comments like, who does she think she is? Da 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 da. People, they want to bring up all the versions of you. And so if you're listening to this and you are a leader and you are in a small community, Caribbean communities are very small, and you're in a small community, I want to encourage you and let you know that you're not going to be like starting out, if nobody has told you, starting out on this leadership journey, you're not going to be liked, and that's okay. And this isn't to say that you're doing and you're mistreating people and so they really don't like you because of that. I'm not talking about those types of situations. I'm talking about really stepping into leadership and having to do your job, and having to do your job with integrity, and having to do your job with fairness, and having to champion changes, because it's not just HR, right? As leaders, you're going to have to champion changes. There's going to be things in your role that are going to be unpleasant for you to deal with, are going to be uncomfortable for you to deal with. You're going to have to deliver those messages. You're going to have to do the hard thing, and you may be tempted to think, well, I want people to like me. You have to get over that. You have to get over that, and there are ways to do so. But if you, just this real quick message, if you are being disliked, it means you are doing something right. It means you're doing something right. I would be wary of that leader who everybody loves 100% of the time. 100% of the time. People should be treated with respect. And so they may not like what you're doing in the moment, but when they reflect hindsight, they should be able to say, well, they treated me with respect. I didn't like X, Y, and Z, but they treated me with respect. And so in a small community, there is the pressure to be liked. There's a pressure to be liked, and we need to manage that, because if we are not careful, it would influence our behavior, it will influence our decisions, and then all of a sudden we're not leading. We're really entertaining, we're really performing, we're really not living in integrity, which is a core value when it comes to leadership. And so that's number one. The other pressure that you face is the pressure to conform, the pressure to be like everybody else. But here's the thing: growth requires transformation. Real growth requires transformation. If you want to be like everybody else, if you want to conform to what everyone else is doing, then there's nothing unique about you. And I believe our uniqueness is a gift. Our uniqueness, our individuality is a doorway, and it is the doorway to our success. Many times we get in environments, we get around people, or just having to grow up in a small community. There is, when you are different, when you stand out, it's like a light that shines on you because you stand out, and oftentimes it can be very, very, very uncomfortable. But growth doesn't come from conforming. Growth comes from transformation, from renewing. I don't know why this Bible verse in my head: renewing your mind, changing yourself, be willing to do the work. And many persons are not willing to do the work. And when I say willing to do the work, I mean really taking a look at who we are, asking that question, looking at the identity of the leader that we want to be. Many people will go through life. Many people will go through life just willy-nilly, go through life without really thinking about who they really want to be, how they really want to show up. And that's important, because we have been in all our lives, growing up, we have been conditioned. We go to school, we are born, we are in our households, things are done a certain way. We go to school, things are done a certain way. That's conditioning, that's programming. We are around our friends, things are done a certain way, and we conform, right? And it takes someone who is courageous and brave to be able to say, hey, I want to be different. I want to embrace my uniqueness. No, I don't agree. Actually, no, I don't agree with what you're saying. No, I don't. This doesn't feel good for me. This doesn't feel right for me. And that sort of thing. And it takes courage to do that. And if you are not someone who is grounded, or you have the inner strength to do that, you will very quickly find yourself conforming, right? Conforming in leadership, just doing any old thing, just accepting any old thing, just doing what you saw someone else do without questioning. But the work is really about us, and the work is really taking time to reflect on our behaviors, to really become aware of what we're doing, to question it. This is the beginning of emotional intelligence. This is the beginning of self-intelligence. I don't think I ever posted this, but one day I was looking at, reflecting and writing some content, and what came out from that writing was that emotional intelligence, the real emotional intelligence, is self-intelligence. It is knowing you. That is, if you never take anything that I have said or will ever say, take this with you, is to get to know yourself. Get to know yourself, because that is your power base. That is your power base. And so, conforming, the pressure to conform. Remember, growth requires transformation. Transformation is about changing. When you think about transformation, you think about that, that whole process with the caterpillar and the butterfly. It undergoes such a unique transformation, right? And so, when you conform, confirmation is like you need validation. You need validation. But transformation is about growth and elevation. So the pressure to conform. And, I hope that when I am sharing this, you're saying to yourself, I know I'm not crazy. I know I'm not crazy. I know that there is something more. And listen, small communities do have their benefits. Living on an island does have its benefits, but it also has its challenges. It also has its drawbacks. And so, the exposure element, the access to resources. Well, now we have the internet and all of that, and we have all this knowledge and all this information at the tips of our fingers, and we must learn to use it wisely. We must learn to use it wisely. And so let's move on to number 3, is the pressure to be mediocre. The pressure to be mediocre. And mediocrity is really about doing the bare minimum. Doing the bare minimum. And in a small community, especially if you are working for a large company, there is this tendency to, not do more than is required. And I'm speaking from the standpoint of hospitality. So, my career, my field is in hospitality. And I was having this conversation with someone, and I think it was my mom. And I was saying to her, do you know that there are some people that refer to the work environment as the plantation. And I understand why that may be, but I've never referred to my work environment as the plantation, right? The plantation is such a negative connotation. And like I said, I understand you're in hospitality, it's service, servitude, all that stuff about history. And so during and throughout the course of my career, I've seen where people just do the bare minimum, like they're not going to do above and beyond. And you see it in other business sectors, you see it in other sectors in society where people just have a knack for mediocrity. And so what usually happens is someone comes along and they go above and beyond, they do more than is required. And if you don't have, that fortitude, you don't have a grounded sense of self, everybody else will be like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to prove? Why are you being like that? I want to tell you that the pressure to be mediocre comes in that forum. The pressure to be mediocre also comes when you are in a job and you don't feel recognized and rewarded. And sometimes you may feel like, what's the point? What is the point? I have certainly been there. But one of the things that I've come to understand about myself and I've come to know about myself is that I am unique, and how I do one thing is how I do everything, and my work speaks for itself. My work is my signature, my work is my autograph, my work is, my work has a voice. And many times I feel like God tests us, right? God tests us, and He puts us sometimes in situations and puts us in seasons where we we don't seem to get the recognition, we don't seem to get the praise we deserve, we don't seem to, it's like, it's almost as if we are working in vain, right? And so the pressure to be mediocre can also come from a work environment that is not healthy, right? Because any work environment that doesn't recognize and reward performance is not a healthy work environment. Like, you must recognize the work of people, and many people think that it's about money. I could tell you right now, it is not about money for everybody. Some persons just want to know thank you. Some persons just want to be highlighted. Some persons just want to be recognized that, hey, they were the ones who came up with that idea. And of course, monetary compensation is great because we have to live, right? But my point is this: there will be times when you have that pressure to be mediocre. It could come from the environment, whether it's people, society, or it's the work environment itself. Do not be mediocre. Always strive for excellence. Always do your best. Don't do the bare minimum. When you, and I have a note here, when you strive and you execute with excellence, it becomes your hallmark. It becomes a pattern. I'm big on patterns, I'm big on behaviors. Anything you touch, let excellence be your hallmark, because what will happen is you will be visible, you will highlight. And sometimes, many times, we think that people are not watching, and they are watching us. And so there's this pressure to be mediocre. The last pressure, like throughout my career, that I have seen is the pressure to stay comfortable. You get this a lot in our islands, the pressure to be comfortable, to stay comfortable, to stay in our comfort zone. I remembered when I decided to go into hospitality. I remembered it. I was talking to a business person, and I had said to this person, listen, you're not going to see me around anymore because I'm going into hospitality. I'll be working at that time it was the Marriott. I'll be going there to work. And I remember that person saying to me, why are you doing that? You have such a great job. That's not, that hotel is never going to open, da 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 da. But I knew, I felt a type of way, right? Lesson number one, this is why you shouldn't tell people your dreams. Like, you see it all over the internet. Keep your dreams and hopes to yourself. If you have to share them, if you absolutely have to, then you have to do it with a few persons who could support and hold that capacity. I might come back to that, because everybody doesn't have the capacity to hold the information that we're giving them at the time. This is something that I've come to recognize in my career. Everybody doesn't, and I'm going off in a different direction now. I'll come back to this. Everybody doesn't have the capacity to hold the information, certain types of information. You have to be careful. I think this is what the Bible was referring to when it spoke about pearls before, like casting pearls before swine. A pig does not have the capacity to understand that a pearl is precious. The pig is like, I want to root in my mud. That feels good to me. I want to wallow in my mud. What is this thing? It doesn't have the capacity to understand the value. And so that, I have found, can happen on so many levels when it comes to sharing information, whether it is personal or whether I've been mulling around this thought, this theory in my mind about sharing information and giving feedback, because I think the same could be true when it comes to giving people feedback. Anyway, the pressure to stay comfortable. And this can happen for many reasons. A lot of times people project their own fears and insecurities, onto you. I remember when I was taking my coaching certification, this is something, both certifications, at the practitioner level and at the master level, this is something that they kept telling us, that they kept impressing upon us how important it was to do our inner work, how important it was to not have judgment, and also to be able to hold space, that we call it, for our clients. Because here's what will happen. If you have a dream, if you have a thought, if you have an idea, and that person you're sharing with doesn't have the capacity, or doesn't have the they have a lot of limiting beliefs along that area, they will project that to you. They will either say it or they will think it. You will feel the energy change. It will happen. You cannot dream. Someone else cannot hold your vision if they haven't expanded their vision as well, right? This is why people say to always find people that are further ahead. They say it like, oh, find yourself in different rooms. I saw it the other day. They say it in a type of way where, yeah, if you require growth and elevation, then you belong in a different room, because the people who are on the same level as you do not have the capacity to hold that vision for you, right? To hold that vision for you. And so you really need to get with people who could hold that vision. They may not have been, be maybe they haven't achieved that, but their thinking is so expanded. So hello everyone, I'm back. So I honestly need to get a new SD card. I was talking, and then I suddenly saw on my screen that it came up that it was full. Anyway, what I was saying is that even if the person hasn't achieved, their thinking needs to be expanded, or they need to have at least had some sort of win and ambition, some sort of growth in another aspect of their life. So it might not be in the same area, but they must be able to hold a vision. And so I'm talking about the pressure to stay comfortable and keeping small. And it's so easy to do that. Now back to that story. So that gentleman had shared that with me and had projected that limiting belief or that fearful thinking onto me. But deep down inside, I felt like that was the direction that I needed to go. And here I am, like 21, how much years I'm 22 years in hospitality, 22 years in hospitality, about 21 years in HR, and I have never regretted it. What if I had catered to that small thinking? What if I had doubted myself? And just catered to it. And so what if I had stayed comfortable? And this is a thing in small societies. There's a pressure to color within the lines, so to speak. There's a pressure not to stand out. There's a pressure not to take risks. In the Caribbean especially, there's a tendency, maybe it's changing, I'm not really sure, but there's a tendency that when you have a job, that you stay in that job for many, many, many years. You just stay in that job. And you would be surprised of the number of persons that don't even want to get promoted. Like, they work for a company, they stay with that company, they have X position, and they'll stay in that position until they die. They don't even want to take the risk to get promoted, or put themselves out there to get promoted within that same company. Don't be that way. I have taken risks. I remember when I left Marriott in 2012, when I left hospitality, I wanted to try HR in another discipline, right? In another sector, sorry. And so I did it in manufacturing, and I realized it wasn't for me. It was really the work environment as well. It was really the culture. I'm not sure if all manufacturing offices are like that. I don't think so, but I really didn't enjoy my tenure there. But I can say though that I did it and I understand it, and it was quite an experience. And so that was a risk, leaving what was comfortable for me for 12 years and going into a totally different field, right? And so if you're someone who wants to take a risk, there is another position, whether it is in your country or if it's in the same company, and you want to go for it, think about it. Don't make an emotional decision, but go for it, right? Go for it. Don't let the pressure to remain comfortable get to you, right? You have got to take the risk. You can't, if you keep doing what you have done, if you keep doing what you have done for the last couple of years, you're going to keep getting the same result. If you want a different result, you got to change something, and many times it is stepping outside your comfort zone. And this is so scary for many of us, right? Because again, it has to do, when you narrow and you strip everything away, it really has to do with your body trying to keep you safe, right? Comfort, your body tries to keep you safe. Your subconscious mind will always take the path of the least resistance. So stepping outside your comfort zone, learning something new, that is going to, you know, uh, trigger some sort of angst, that sort of thing. There are ways to get around it. I'm big on breathing. I study in the storm. It's linked below. That can help you as well. But the pressure to stay comfortable. And so I really wanted to share with you like these 4 areas, these 4 ways that pressure can creep up, or pressure is present because of the environment that we are in and where we live, our location and so forth, because it was certainly that way for me. But I've always been this person that I want to be better. I want to do better. I want more for myself. Like if I am not, I'm one of these persons that I need to have that fulfillment and that sense of purpose. And maybe you are that way as well, because many times we go through life and we wonder, is this it, right? You go to school, you graduate from high school, you either go to college, you look a job, and you know you either get kids, you get married, whatever the situation is, and then you wonder, is this it? Many persons are missing that sense of fulfillment, and that sense of fulfillment could be because your growth is stunted, because maybe you have this pressure to be liked, so you don't want to push the envelope, you don't want to create waves, you don't want to say the uncomfortable thing that needs to be said. You have the pressure to conform, to be like everybody else, the persons that you went to school with, because if there's this gnawing in your spirit that you and your heart that you need to be different, that you need to make changes, that you don't need to go out and spend all night or all weekend partying, right? Or you don't need to be doing whatever. And so there's this transformation, there's this butterfly really waiting inside you to unfold, but the pressure to conform, right? And then the pressure to be mediocre, to just do the bare minimum. Just thinking about it is just, it's like to do the bare minimum. Excellence in all you do. Stamp your work, autograph your work in excellence. You have no idea the persons who are looking at you. And then the pressure to stay comfortable, to not take risks, to be the same, to live the same day in and out. And so I really wanted to bring this message to you. I was really excited to share this message because I feel like that this message will land. There's somebody out there that needs this message. And so if you have someone in your life that has been sharing with you how unfulfilled they feel, or if you have someone who is new in a leadership role, or who just is, maybe they fit in one of these categories, then send this video to them. They need to hear it. I feel like as leaders, and this is why I speak about leadership, and you don't really hear me talk so much about HR, because here's the deal. We are all HR people. Leaders do some form of HR, right? Because you're dealing with people, so there's some form of HR involved. But most importantly, I believe that leadership is a way to leave a legacy, right? It's a way to leave a legacy in this world. No, many of us won't be famous, right? Like Bill Gates or the presidents or some sort of freedom fighter or whomever or some sort of inventor. We may never fit into that category. That's okay. But all of us lead, right? You're either leading your homes, you're either leading in the workplace, which I speak a lot about. You're either leading in you're a leader in your community, you're a leader in your church, you're a leader, you lead yourself. And so leadership is a way of leaving a legacy, because you can change the lives of the very people you lead. Think about a boss that think about in two scenarios, two bosses. One that was really terrible to you and the things they may have said or did. And as you think about it, you will remember what they said, how they made you feel. And as I speak right now, that person, a picture is probably flashing across your mind, and you probably have a feeling running through your body. It doesn't feel really good, right? And then think about a leader that really supported you, that really believed in you, right? And think about that. Think about how they changed your life. Think about how they made you feel like you could do XYZ, or think about the opportunity they gave you that opened doors to do things that you wanted to do, or things that you never knew you could do, right? That is legacy. That is legacy. Like those people, that is a legacy that they have left with you. And that is why I speak so much about leadership. That is why I believe in it. Because it is a way that we leave our legacy in this world, which is really, really, really powerful. One act can change the entire history. That's how I see it. One act can change an entire history, can change an entire generation. And so this is why I do what I do, because I know the leaders that I've had, how they've impacted my life. And so I want to be that leader to others, and I want to show you, and I want to show others that it could be done, and it's fulfilling. And it's a great way when you look back on your life to say, yeah, I came and I did this, and I'm so proud of myself, and I'm so proud of the lives that I've touched, right? And so let me know in the comments, let me know if this episode resonated with you. And what I also wanted to share is, if there is a topic that you'd love for me to speak on, let me know. Send me a DM, send me a WhatsApp. I'll be more than happy to. Until next time, I will see you on another wavelength. Bye.